Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. On the night when we honor the most successful genre in all of motion pictures, the animated feature film. I am Bill Croyer. I'm one of the governors of the Academy, along with my fellow governors John Bloom and Bob Rogers. And we are privileged to be the governors of the Short Films and Feature Animation branch. Our branch has the lucky situation of being able to send the most nominees to the Academy Awards. That's because we have three categories. We have the live-action short films, we have the animated short films, and we have the animated feature films. So this year, our branch is sending 30 nominees to the Oscars. Take that out, acting branch. You know, and you can always tell our nominees on the red carpet. You just look at the paparazzi gesturing to them. They're going, "Would you move along, please? Would you please?" You know, you're blocking Meryl. Come on. Tuesday night, in this very room, we honored the other part of the branch, the short films. And at that assembly, we always like to point out to people the explosion of short film production in the world, the growing and passionate worldwide audience, and the fact that short films are starting to make real money in the box office, which is a great thing. Now, having trouble making money in the box office is not something associated with animated feature films. As I mentioned to you, they are literally the most successful genre in the history of motion pictures, and not just money-wise. Best critical reviews, most audience favorites, and they have this lifelong history of preserving themselves. People love them. Everybody has got an animation collection that goes back 30, 40 years. And tonight, this list of films is sure to join your collection. Takahata-san, Nishimura-san, Tomm, Dean and Bonnie, Tony, Graham, Don, Chris, and Roy. Next Sunday will be the night when you will have that title, you will be honored with that title you'll ever be stuck with, which is Academy Award nominee. But tonight, I guess it's you're honoring us we're making you do a little more work for us. You're going to get up on the stage here, tell us a little more about these wonderful films that you have made. And you know, the other 16 branches of the Academy do creative work. They make creative stories. They make great stories. But our branch, we don't just tell great stories. They create the worlds. I mean, these worlds like San Francisco, I always have trouble with that. San Francisco, help me out. The island of Burke, all these wonderful imaginary places that we create are truly, truly something different. You know, whether we make the movies, if we just know the guys that make the movies, if we just watch and enjoy the movies, aren't we all really lucky to have anything to do with this art form? Yeah. And don't we really love these people who bring us this magic? Yes. And I have to say, no one has brought us more magic in a better way than the hosts of tonight's evening. They won last year, they were directed last year's Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film, and they kind of gave the gift that keeps on giving to the Disney bottom line. I think they sold $800 million in merchandising for a project that was done last year. I mean, it's really amazing. So please give it up. I should really actually say, please let it go for the directors of Frozen, Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee.
Thank you, Bill. We brought you guys magic last year. That magic ends tonight. Right here in the next minute or so, it's going to end. So why are we here, Jen? Why are we here?
Well, I mean, I know why we're here.
Why?
Because we love animation.
Okay, we do. You know what? I love animation so much that I would like to buy it a car and take it on long weekend drives and listen to Neil Diamond songs.
Okay. I love animation so much that I'm going to cook at my grandma's aglio olio.
Ooh.
And then I'm going to learn Italian. And then I'm going to talk all romantic to it and say things like,
Wow. Ooh, okay. But you know what? I think I'd love it even more because I'm going to take a calligraphy class and I'm going to become an astronaut and I'm going to fly to the moon and I'm going to write the word animation in the sand up there. A-N-I-M. No?
I love animation so much that I am going to marry it in a giant winter ceremony. Adina Menzel's going to sing. Then I'm going to have a public tumultuous breakup so I can remarry it in a quiet, intimate ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, you almost win, but I think I love it even better because you know what? I love animation so much that I would invite all the feature animation Oscar nominees to come here live to show clips of their films and maybe we'd ask them questions and we might take pictures with them.
I think you win.
Do I win?
You win.
Okay, guess what? I did that. I invited them all, and here they are. Okay, so
And that is why you don't let a writer and an animator host.
we're keeping our day jobs.
Okay.
All right, so first up, what do we
Yeah,
have?
let's get to it.
You guys know why we're here. We're going to talk to the guys and show their clips and all that stuff. So the first up
Wait.
is,
Does everyone have 3D
oh,
glasses?
3D glasses, if you have
You're
them.
gonna
Now's the
need
time.
them for this one, 'cause
I didn't. I will be the last time. You're welcome, Bonnie. That's for you. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is first.
What do you think, bud? You want to give this another shot? Toothless, it'll be fine. Ready? This is amazing! No longer amazing! Toothless! Oh no! Woo! Well, that really came out of nowhere. We gotta work on your solo gliding there, bud. That locked up tail makes for some pretty sloppy rescue maneuvers, hey? Looks like we found another one, bud. Oh, what? Do you want an apology? Is that why you're pouting, big baby boo? Well, try this on. Oh, you feeling it yet? Huh? Picking up on all of my heartfelt remorse? Come on. You wouldn't hurt a one-legged. Oh, you're right. You win. He's down. Oh, and it's ugly. Dragons and Vikings. Enemies again. Locked in combat to the bitter. Oh, you know that doesn't wash out. So, what should we name it? Itchy Armpit it is. What do you reckon, bud? Think we might find a few timberjacks in those woods? The odd whispering death or two in the rocks? Who knows? Maybe we'll finally track down another Night Fury. Wouldn't that be something? So what do you say? Just keep going?
So we want to bring up to the stage, we've got the producer and the director. We have Bonnie Arnold and Dean DeBlois, right? I don't know. I get to say your name, Dean, because I don't know how to say it. How do you pronounce your name, Dean? That's the first question.
DeBlois.
I was close.
Yeah, that was great.
Okay. All right.
I answer to them all.
Okay, well, it's great to have you guys here. Worked with you in so many things together. Bonnie and I worked together on Tarzan just a few years ago. The first one.
Amazing experience.
Yeah. Well, first one is, okay, big question. What's the challenge of doing a sequel?
I think the challenge in doing a sequel is just avoiding repetition and avoiding the sense that it's just a cash grab and there's no importance to the story. So in coming up with ideas for this second installment, I pitched back the idea of a trilogy. If it was the second act of a larger coming-of-age story, then it meant that we could meet Hiccup at a different point in his life, you know, having a different rite of passage and bring elements to the story that were fresh and new and still universal and that touched upon an overall character growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much freedom did you have? But you know, with the success of the first film, to just kind of make this your own and do something really new with the series.
I think that because of the success of the first film and the fact that it established a new tone at DreamWorks, one that they, that they hadn't really mined recently. You know, I think with Prince of Egypt and some of the first few films, there was a kind of a grander, more classical approach. But in films leading up to ours, maybe apart from Kung Fu Panda, there was a heavy reliance on pop culture. And I think that we were telling something that was a little more earnest, a little more classical, and that took a few daring risks. And that allowed us to keep going in that direction.
And he had me.
This is true.
To protect him from all that. My team is laughing, but they know that's true.
Well, see, I mean, you talk about, like in the first one where it was a very brave thing to do of him losing his leg, right? You don't do that in most normal animated movies, right? Your hero losing a leg. And then in the next one, him actually losing. Everybody's seen this, right? Well, okay, but
spoiler.
Yeah, I mean, and actually getting rid of a main character like that. How does the studio feel about that when you come to them or show them the screenings?
In those instances, I think it's good to remind Jeffrey of the films that he's made in the past. And he was so proud of The Lion King. So it's not as though it was without precedent, but it also grew out of something that was very organic. Hiccup had to become the leader of his clan, and albeit reluctant, I think having a little push over the edge really forced him to kind of confront that which he was running from. And I think it was handled with a sincerity because I was 19 when I lost my father. So I think Hiccup in the funeral is speaking the words I wish I could have had the clarity of mind and emotion to have said. And so I think in treating it not gratuitous, but as a tribute to the bravery and the sacrifice of parents and kind of that threshold, that rite of passage that a lot of us have to step over at a young age. I think it has something noble to say.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think that's why it rings so true in the movie. A lot of times, people expect we're just doing silly cartoons here, and yet it's always the real stuff it's based on our lives, and we always try to create a believable world, as we say, but then believable moments. So kudos for you. It's a beautiful moment.
And Bonnie, can you we joked about sort of how you...
Is your mic on?
Oh, is my mic on? Sorry. We'll cozy. Oh. All right. Anyway, you talk about protecting the filmmakers, but that's a really big thing in animation. Can you talk more about that? And sort of, it's not just people. I think people think producers are about getting the directors to stay in budget and things like that, but in animation, it's much more creative. Can you talk?
Well, I think Dean and I have been our creative team. Well, they're here tonight, and I see the movie again. It makes me so proud. But I think we had a lot of conversations early on about what the movie would be. Dean wrote an amazing script, and I feel like it's my. As a lot of people, almost everybody knows here, especially who love animation, we know we create every element of every frame. So many days you're looking at the micro every single day, and I feel like part of my job is really to try to keep an eye on the macro, the big picture, and keep it in mind of the things that we were going for, the things that we talk about in the beginning of what we really want the movie to be, and I try to sort of look out for those things and get involved when I feel like we get a little bit off the path, or keep those things in mind, knowing where we think we want to be. It's always better than what we thought it was going to be, but that's what I enjoy doing that, and I, watching these things get created, and again, being better than what we thought they would be.
This woman will go to the mat for any filmmaker. I will attest to that. You had a few screaming matches with some of the executives over at Disney, right? Yeah.
I'm little, but I'm fierce.
No. So one of the things too, being the sequel, were there any things in the first one that you couldn't put in that you said, "Oh, great, we can put it in the second one"?
Yeah, definitely. I think with the first film, we were just trying to finish it in time. Chris Sanders and I were drafted on pretty late in the game. It was about 15 months out from the fixed release date. And we were taking the elements. A lot of it had been designed in terms of characters and sets, and we just had to bring kind of new story elements to it. So there were a few new characters to build, like our version of Toothless and the big monster at the end of the film, and aging up the characters a little bit more. But it also meant that there were certain storylines, like what happened to Hiccup's mother, that there was a nod toward it, but we didn't really explain. And in considering where we could go with the story, if Hiccup's at a point in his life where he's standing on that threshold of adulthood, kind of trying to cling to youth and the abandon of that, but feeling a definite mismatch with his father's expectations for him to settle down and learn the ways of being a chief and stay at home, then his mother could represent that wild abandon, that sense of pining in his soul that there's more to him than his destiny seems to have laid out for him. So creating a character like Valka meant that we could have it be everything that Hiccup wanted to be, but at the core fundamental sort of basis of it, that she would only believe in segregation. The only way to protect dragons is to hide them away from humans. and that could be their rub. And that really sort of creates a little bit of her arc. Not only does she realize that people of Burke could change after all, but that she can change as well, and she can go back home.
You talked about Chris Sanders, of course, you and Chris directing on the first one. What was it like? What was it like to do it solo this time?
He's not here, so
Yeah, he's not here.
you can be honest. So.
Well, I mean, Chris is only ever a phone call away, but he was busy with the Croods, and it gave me an opportunity to stretch a bit. I think there's a comfortable reliance upon your collaborator when you have a co-director and a co-writer. I think in this case, I couldn't just cling to ideas that I liked simply because I liked them. I found myself having to be a little more brutally honest with my own writing and my own choices, and then rely upon Bonnie and rely upon the leadership of our team to be completely forthright with me and let me know if they thought something wasn't ringing true. And we all had the ambition of wanting to rise above the curse of a sequel, so it meant that on a routine basis we would say, does this live up to the expectation of the first film? Because it has to at least be that, if not surpass it. And in that sense, I feel like I had, co-directors all around me.
Our fans were watching us too. Things would leak out on the internet or something, and I think we had to use something that we needed to show of Hiccup early on, and he wasn't quite finished in his, his surfacing and the complete look. And immediately Dean got an email and said, "Where are Hiccup's freckles? He doesn't have enough freckles." And immediately, so we had to go back and make sure that when he was finished, he had as many freckles as he had when he was in the first movie.
Well, it's interesting. I think we only have time for one more question. But you talk about the character designs, and they're really unique and appealing. What a bit of like that process for you, and how, and in the challenges in the second for the first to give its own look, but also stay true to the first.
Well, I just want to acknowledge quickly that our character designer, or Nico Marley, is here in the audience tonight. He's out there, and our production designer, Pierre-Olivier Vincent. We definitely just have to say quickly, so we had to age up all the characters. So in some ways, we were starting over. They were all 5 years older, including Toothless. So I think that was one of the challenges.
Yeah, and it was really just a process of trial and error, and making sure that as we altered shapes and elongated jaws, or we didn't lose the appeal, we didn't lose the basic statement of that character. It was easier with some of our more exaggerated characters. With Hiccup, it was particularly difficult, because we wanted him to kind of grow up and be heroic without losing his awkward, gangly charm, which is kind of what makes him a winning character. So there's the whole idea of that flight suit is designed to sort of give him a hint of heroism. It gives him broader shoulders when he has it on. But it's also, it's designed as a forward thinker and a blacksmith's apprentice. As he's out there pushing the limits and learning about aerodynamics and mapping the world, he has all the tools that he would carry with him. And so in a sense, like to a little boy, it's kind of an aspirational, cool outfit. But there's also a self-awareness, and I think Astrid's there to point out how kind of dorky it is at the same time. So I think we wanted to keep it kind of playful in that sense, that she's always kind of playing with the buttons and the things that cause fins to pop out or whatnot.
Well, my goodness.
The red light is on.
You have to go. Thank you so much.
But we will have you back at the end.
Yeah, so don't actually leave, because we...
Yeah, don't leave.
Not going anywhere.
But
Don't get
congratulations.
Thank you both. Thank
Congrats.
you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great.
See you over again soon.
Who's
Hey,
next?
Well, we may know this one. If we don't, we should be fired, but whatever. This clip, you don't need your glasses, relax, and please enjoy Big Hero 6.
But Tadashi, just let him die.
Give me the mask, hero.
He went in there to save you.
That was his mistake.
Baymax, destroy.
My programming prevents me from injuring a human being.
Not anymore.
Hero, this is not what...
Do it, Baymax. Destroy him.
My healthcare protocol has been violated. I regret any distress I may have caused.
How could you do that? I had him!
What you just did, we never signed up for.
We said we'd catch the guy. That's it.
I never should have let you help me. Baymax, find Callahan.
My enhanced scanner has been damaged.
Wait! Hero, this isn't part of the plan. Fly!
Your blood pressure is elevated. You appear to be distressed.
I'm fine. There, is it working?
My sensor is operational.
Good. Then let's get... What?
Are you going to remove my healthcare chip?
Yes. Open.
My purpose is to heal the sick and injured.
Baymax, open your access port.
Do you want me to terminate Professor Callahan?
Just open.
Will terminating Professor Callahan improve your emotional state?
Yes. No, I don't know. Open your access.
Is this what Tadashi wanted?
It doesn't matter.
Tadashi programmed me to aid in...
Tadashi's gone! Tadashi's gone.
Tadashi is here.
No, he's not here.
Tadashi is here.
This is Tadashi Hamada.
And this is the first test of my robotics project.
Hello, I am Baymax.
Stop! The 7th test of my robotics project.
Hello, I am
Wait, stop scaring, stop! Tadashi Hamada again. And this is the 33rd test of my robotics project. I'm not giving up on you. You don't understand this yet, but people need you. So let's get back to work. This is Tadashi Hamada, and this is the 84th test. What do you say, big guy?
Hello, I am Baymax, your personal healthcare companion.
It works. It works! Oh, this is amazing! You work! I knew it! I knew it! You work! I can't believe it! I can't... Okay. All right, big moment here. Scan me.
Your neurotransmitter levels are elevated. This indicates that you are happy.
I am! I really am! Oh, man. Wait till my brother sees you. You're gonna help so many people, buddy. So many. That's all for now. I am satisfied with my care.
Thank you, Baymax.
Hey, and we'd like to invite up Roy Conli, Don Hall, and all the way from Wandering Oaken's trading post in Sauna, I believe we have Chris Williams as well. I know you.
Do you want to explain before we start why you said the Wandering Oaken thing?
Maybe you can explain.
Oh, yes, I am the voice of Oaken, for those of you who don't know.
That's not what he sounds like. You ruined it.
Give us a little, come on.
Okay. Big summer blowout.
Yes.
And so thank you.
Nice.
He does this for parties. It's great.
You can rent him out.
And he's so talented that while doing that, he was able to also direct an entire movie.
I feel like I could probably direct 100 movies, but that will always be my legacy, is the Oaken character.
All right. Thanks, guys, for making us cry all over again.
Yeah, we haven't. To be honest, we hadn't seen that in a while, and I think we were all a little, verklempt.
Got me again.
Yeah, it always gets me.
Beautiful, beautiful film. Okay, so we at Disney, there's a lot of research that goes on, as we all know. Can you speak a little bit about the research that you did for this one?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we did a lot of research trips to San Francisco and Tokyo. But to me, the one that was the most sort of ground shaking, the one that really gave us something I never could have imagined was Baymax. And very early on, I was a little terrified of putting a robot on screen because there's just so many robots. There's the Transformers and there's Terminators and Wall-E's and there's a lot of robots. Yeah, Johnny 5 and R2-D2, C-3PO, on and on and on. So I knew it was going to be a big challenge. We can't just do a robot. You got to find something new. And so I was a little scared. And so I did a research trip back east to MIT, Harvard, and Carnegie Mellon. And I was just looking for inspiration. I was meeting all the top roboticists. And again, just looking for a huggable robot. Lisa Keene, who's one of our biz dev artists, coined that phrase. And that was just rattling around in the back of my head. And so I was looking for this huggable robot, and it was at Carnegie Mellon. I met a researcher named Chris Atkinson who was doing research in soft robotics. It's a very real field, very bleeding edge, real new, and basically they're building robots out of vinyl that are inflatable that will be used in the healthcare industry. So with that one research trip, Baymax's entire character, his entire personality, not just his character design, but his personality came from that research trip. So it's vital to what we do.
And there's this guy, John Lasseter. I think you've met him. As you guys know, if you embark to tell a story that features a robot, he's going to ask you to put up images of every famous, iconic robot that ever existed, and then he's going to say, "Give me something new." And that was Don's task. When he came back with the initial sketches of Baymax, I think everyone realized he'd found something really special.
Well, Baymax is indeed, it's one of the best characters in years. Just an incredible character. So, great job.
Well, and you were talking about research, but also some people might not know that you were inspired by the Big Hero 6 Marvel comic, but you did make it a lot your own. But can you talk about what drew you to that comic, and then sort of what, if anything, that you have included in the design or the look?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, John always has us, as the directors, just ask the simple question: what are you passionate about? That we have to start there, because if we're not passionate about it, then nobody else is going to be. So I thought about what I loved as a kid. I loved Disney animation, obviously, but I also love Marvel Comics. It's really where I fell in love with drawing and storytelling, graphic storytelling. And luckily for me, Mr. Bob Iger had just purchased Marvel just recently. Thank you. And so I got really excited by combing through their archives and finding something that might be cool to bring over. And I pitched that idea to John. And I swear to God, it was a 5-minute. This is the quickest conversation I've ever had with John. I pitched him that idea, and he loved it. And he just said, "Go find something." And so I would spend my lunch hours as we were finishing up Winnie the Pooh, just kind of. They have a great website that has all their characters and their powers and issues that they're in and all that kind of stuff. So I found this little gem called Big Hero 6, and I'd never heard of it. And essentially, it was a Japanese superhero team, kind of like a Japanese Avengers. And I thought it was really cool. And I bought the comics, and I fell in love with the characters. They're just fun, and they had goofy names like Wasabi and Honey Lemon, and the whole thing was really just this love letter to Japanese pop culture. You could just tell the creators loved Japanese pop culture, and I know a lot of us at animation love it as well. But we also saw there could be a really emotional story there, with the 14-year-old super genius who loses his brother and this robot who essentially becomes his healer. And it's a really obscure title. I think there's 13 total issues in the Marvel universe. And but that was the one John picked, and I think we were all super stoked about it, and we got right on it.
It was really Don's concept of the 14-year-old boy losing his brother that was the emotional hook, though. We all rallied around that, and that was always the guiding light in terms of the production. We always wanted to make sure that we were paying homage to that theme.
Yeah, and essentially, I mean, what it has to do with the comic book, I mean, if this was an adaptation, it would be like the worst adaptation in the history of adaptations, because it is not an adaptation. It's really more inspired by, essentially, we kept the characters' names and the title. And there you could see sort of a thread to some of their powers, but we really tried to ground it in real science. And when we talked with Marvel about it, they said make your own world, create your own universe. Don't worry about Iron Man showing up or anything like that. You can just take it and run. And that's what led to San Francisco. So once that decision was made very early on to kind of create our own world, it really distanced itself from the source material.
Do they want to use Baymax for anything now? Next Avengers?
We own them.
That's a good question. I don't know. I know they love the movie, so that's cool.
How did you guys divide the directing duties? Everybody always...
Yeah, I think that Dom was in a similar position to the one that I was in on Bolt, where I got it certain ways through the production, and then realized I just couldn't be in enough places, and asked Byron Howard, the amazing Byron Howard, to join me, and Dom was in a similar place. It was always a very ambitious story, a huge world, lots of characters. I think the depth of emotion I think was very ambitious, and Don just couldn't be in enough places. He asked me to join him, but Don and I have a pretty similar skill set. We both come from storyboarding background, and we've both been at Disney for almost 20 years and have known each other for a long time. And so we were able to, there was a real shorthand that we had. We'd never directed together, but we knew each other very well. And we ended up trying to spend as much time as possible in the story room together. So we really had that, so we made sure that we were trying to make the same movie. At a certain point, it got to where we had to separate. And then Don spent a bit more time in animation, and I was in lighting and effects and a little bit of editorial. But as quickly as we could, we got back together, and we're in as many meetings as possible together.
Cool. And Roy, from looking in on these wonderfully talented men, as
That's
not
not
talented
what you said
yourself,
earlier.
what was I mean? But what would you say was the biggest challenge of Big Hero 6?
It's always story. It's always story. I mean, we drove, we kept them together for as long as we could so that we made sure that the story was functioning. Once we got to the point where we understood that the story was actually functioning and we were actually hitting those key emotional moments that we wanted, that's when they broke and started splitting the duties. But the always story is the...
Well, and this one in particular was tough. Even right at the beginning, I think we all recognized that it's like, okay, you've got this emotional story that you're trying to tell between this kid and this robot, and you can make a movie about that. But you've also got this really cool, quirky superhero origin story. You can make a movie about that. So how do you make a movie that combines both of those things into the same movie? And that, to me, was the hardest thing. I for 20 years, I've never worked on anything harder than this. But ultimately, we found that Baymax was the link, the key to bringing those stories together. The idea that he's very active in Act 2, trying to heal Hero, and that healing takes the form of trying to surround him with friends and loved ones. So from Baymax's point of view, he's just trying to heal a patient who's going through grief. But essentially, he starts a superhero team.
Yeah, I mean, every story is hard, and each one is just hard in its own way. And I think the thing that was specific to this one, the specific challenge was tying together all these disparate elements, because there were a lot of characters, and there was an audience expectation for Marvel movies, but also Disney movies. Aesthetically, there was a coming together of East and West, and genre-wise, it was a boy and his dog or boy and his robot, and it was a superhero origin story. And just tonally, there are places where it's very irreverent and silly, and places where we were trying to achieve a real deep emotion, and trying to get a tone and a personality that would house all these things. That was probably the biggest specific challenge of this movie, I think.
That's where it's really helpful. We have a story trust that you guys join us every
familiar.
so often. And it really helped us tremendously just wrap up all those ends. And I think it's definitely the story that touches me the most of everything I've worked on.
Talk about the story trust a little bit, or just how many times you guys show the movies, just for everybody here. It's kind of interesting.
I think on this one was 8 screenings we did, 8 internal screenings, and for those of you who don't know, it's essentially storyboards at the beginning with temporary music, temporary sound effects, temporary voices, and everything temporary. It's meant to be bad. It's meant to be horrible. And we look at them, and we get in a room with all the other directors and talk about what we could do to make it better. And you do it about every 3 months. It's pretty grueling, but essentially after a while, things start to work, and you replace that with animation, and at the end of the day, you've got a finished movie. It's that easy.
Just add water.
I mean, we all work together, and I think that one of the things that has been achieved at Disney Animation is a truly collaborative environment. I think that there's an expectation that you have to give your honest reaction and honest feedback to any screening or any scene or at every opportunity, and you also have to be willing to hear that feedback and to take it seriously. And I think that sometimes that can fight human nature, because we all want to be told that every idea we have is amazing and the movie's perfect and don't touch a thing. But if that's all you expose yourself to, then the movie will never get any better. And sometimes people can quell that stuff in an overt way or a subtle way, but you can never do that. You have to be always receptive to contradictory points of view, and even foster an environment that encourages people to disagree with you if that's how they feel. And I think we've achieved that.
You have to train to do that too. I mean, you have to actually train to not only give, but to take criticism. And to have seen the growth over the last 8 years in that has been stunning.
Fantastic. Well, I think we talk about the process being grueling and high expectations, and a big part of it is, as we say, the success of animation in general is trying to appeal to people of all ages and of all walks of life. And how do you balance that? How do you balance in the story, even particularly with action sequences, ensuring it's exciting and powerful, but knowing there are children watching and.
Yeah, it's well, I guess ultimately you have to go with your gut a little bit, and what do you think is appropriate? What do you like? Because you have to service, you got to service the what you love first, and even the scene that we just showed, we felt like we pushed that pretty far dramatically. And the good thing is the dude in the Hawaiian shirt is right there with us, telling us to go for it and pushing us. And he really, at that scene in particular, he was really pushing us to keep going for it. And the movie can handle it. And in fact, he would act things out, and it was terrifying because he became Baymax, shooting off his rocket fist right in front of my face. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I see what you're going for.
We were fortunate, though, because we had Baymax, and Baymax became the great equalizer because everyone loved Baymax so much, either in the warehouse scene where the microbots are chasing them, or this scene. Everyone wants Baymax to survive, and that was...
He's reassuring, yeah.
He's a very reassuring character. And the kids, it blew me away. We did one preview in Arizona, and I was so worried that kids were going to be running from the theater screaming. Not a one. It was amazing.
I think you have to be somewhat mindful that it has to be a broad audience film, but you don't spend a lot of time thinking or talking about it. And I think that one of the amazing things about the animation industry and all the films nominated this year is they are broad audience, approachable films, but they're all packed with really challenging ideas. They're all really sophisticated. They're all really well-told stories. I think that's the amazing thing. It's almost like a Trojan horse. People come thinking they're going to see an entertaining, fun movie that's a broad appeal film, but they come away getting much more than they expected. I think that all of them have a real emotional impact, and they're all just amazing, and it's really exciting to be here with all of them.
We should charge just not for kids anymore.
That's true.
That is it, you guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Don't go away.
Thank you. Next up, I think it's 3D glasses time. Boxtrolls.
Gentlemen, look at all these boxes left lying about. How curious, how peculiar. I do believe evil is afoot. Foot.
You ever seen someone's foot be evil, Mr. Trout?
I believe the boss meant evil is nearby, Mr. Pickles.
My foot had a pretty nasty bunion once. I wouldn't say the foot itself was evil.
No, it's just a fancy word for vicinity.
Wrinkly old bunion looked like my grandma. Had to saw her off. The bunion, not my grandma.
Dagger, here's one.
Come on, you squirmy monster. Days of evil doing are over.
Do you really think these Boxtrolls understand the duality of good and evil?
They must, right? Why else would they hide from us? We are the good guys.
Yeah, I suppose we are.
Okay, we have the directors here. We have Tony Stacchi and Graham Annable. Correct? Annable? Hey, guys. Hey, Tony. Graham.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
You can't. No, it makes it's very cozy.
I just have to say, looking at the wide variety of styles this year, I think it's fantastic. We have 2 CG, 2 hand-drawn, and then 1 stop motion. And I just think it's really healthy. Yeah. The industry is very healthy, so I'm very excited about that. And here we go, the stop motion.
Well, we talked about Here Be Monsters by Alan Snow, inspired Boxtrolls. And it's like 550
pages.
550
cast
pages.
Of thousands.
The cast of, so that was probably really easy to adapt. Can you talk about it?
The advice a writer gave me once was to throw everything out but the title and see what creeps back in.
We all seem to have a habit of doing that, don't we?
We did that for a little while, but mostly we love the tone of the book. We always pitched it as sort of a Monty Python doing Oliver Twist. David Lean's Oliver Twist if it starred all the Pythons. That's how we always talked about it with Travis. Travis bought the book about 10 years ago when they were working on Coraline, so it had sort of sat in development for quite a long time, and they couldn't quite crack it, with the treatments of it, because along with the Boxtrolls underground, there's cabbage heads and trotting badgers and rabbit women.
Sea cows.
Yeah, women who live underground in rabbit suits, and there's no explanation why. So we kept having treatments that tried to keep all that stuff in there. And then nobody could quite nail down what the core, simple story was going to be. And then use what Travis always describes as a ruthless economy, is that if the extra characters and the other bits didn't support that simple core story, they would have to go. And it was painful because the movie used to end with a giant armored war rat attacking the town. And that was the only reason I did the movie, was for the armored war rat. And I told everybody at Leica that I'm gone if the war rat's gone. And within 3 months, the war rat was gone.
And you stuck around.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Had dirt on you? Is that what it was by then? Yeah.
Pictures.
It's such an amazing looking film, too. So how did the style come about?
I mean, a lot of it Michel Breton. I mean, it originated with Nicolas de Cressy.
There's
a lot of French connection to this film,
A French graphic novelist named Nicolas de Cressy had a style that I always loved. So he did some inspirational sketches.
And then Michel Breton, who had worked on Coraline. I'd worked on Coraline as a story artist, and Michel had done a lot of concepts for that. The studio was very familiar, and it seemed like a perfect fit for him. And he was the right guy to sort of extrapolate those early concepts that Nicolas de Cressy had done.
Yeah, so we really used him a lot. He would draw up areas that we used in storyboarding and stuff. So even in the boarding, that line quality and the torqued shapes of the buildings, all that stuff started to come out. And especially that line, like that Egon Schiele kind of line quality we loved in the drawing style that Michel brought to it. Then the problem was to translate that to real sets and stuff. And we pretty much had, even the first time I read the book, I had an idea of how it would look. You know, I loved those, David Lean's Oliver Twist and Juno Caro,
yeah.
You know, we had a lot of influence that we really wanted to bring into it. It was actually a bigger problem with the character designs.
Oh, in what way?
We got the look of the movie first, which is kind of opposite. As you know, you usually get your lineup of characters, and then you develop the look of the world after that. So we had this look that we really loved, and our characters, their silhouettes never really changed, but they didn't quite fit into that world, you know, bringing that line quality into the costumes and stuff. It took a while of actually producing them and having our character designer, Mike Smith, go over them again and again to try to make sure they meld with Michel's look.
Wow.
Well, and on that line, we talk about sort of in our world, averages 3 to 4 years to make this CG film, and about 9 to 10 months of that is animation. And for you,
these days,
sometimes 5 months. Or 3,
used
to be longer.
We used to have a few years for animation. Anyway,
now it's a few months. but in your process, from sort of script to actually starting to shoot, how long is that, and then how long does it take to shoot?
Well, the shooting stayed pretty consistent. I worked as a story artist on Coraline and Paranorman and Boxtrolls, and the shooting schedule has typically been about 18 months, about a year and a half. It's a pretty rigorous 18 months.
Yeah, every part of stop motion is the same up until you open the floodgates and you start to build sets and you bring on animators. We only had about 26 animators for the whole process in that 18 months. They do about 35, 45 frames a day, about 5 minutes a week, which isn't dissimilar from some CG production. But there are only about 26 really great stop motion
your crew can't get any
in the
bigger.
world. So you
got them all?
We totally lucked out that there was only one stop motion film being made, because a lot of times there is a fight if there's two going on at the same time, or if Aardman's really crewed up, or if Henry Selick has a film at the same time, or something like that. So we lucked out and we got all the great ones and stuff. And then if we had needed to have 60 animators, we wouldn't have known where to find them.
So how does it work? I mean, in hand-drawn, there would be a supervising animator, right, for a character. And in CG, we also sort of go towards people, the person who knows how to animate a certain character the best. Does it work the same in stop motion?
It's grown at Leica. They had character leads on Coraline. I think Henry liked doing it that way, but it became sequence leads. So an animator gets to own a whole chunk of the movie and gets to work on that whole sequence. An animator, whether there's 6 characters or 1 character, animates all of the characters in that scene, even if they're put together as elements. Like that scene where the Boxtrolls on the street going back in the distance, Riley did that one, and he did all those characters just slowly. They cut the set away. He did the guys in the background, then they added more set. He did the next guys until he got the guys walking in from off camera. And since they can own that scene, they can kind of keep a consistency in the animation, because when it comes down the pipe, you can do one scene at the beginning of the schedule and then another one quite a few months later and stuff.
Well, how do you keep the characters consistent though? Because suddenly I'm sure you see scenes that you go, boy, that person has eggs down. He's really got, he or she has eggs.
You try to direct those to, like Jason Stahlman did the Madame Frou-Frou, all of the dancing sequence. Mm-hmm. And he also did, when we could take him away from that, which took most of the schedule to do that, we would take him away for certain snatcher moments.
Yeah, and Malcolm Lamont for baby eggs. He just had a knack of making that puppet the most cute, adorable thing ever. And so suddenly Malcolm was doing all the baby egg shots that we could get him onto.
Okay.
But yeah, there's the animators all certainly talk to each other, and when the crew's a little smaller, in some ways it's a little more manageable in that respect, that everybody does recognize and know which moments are really working in the film and what consistencies need to be there. I mean, there was a funny moment with, actually Jason Stahlman animated it, where Snatcher's walking down the stairs, and he does this wonderful little thing where he kind of goes across opposite to put the hair back. and we loved it, and it worked great. And Sir Ben Kingsley saw that piece, and he really responded to it, so we all were like, okay, that's something Snatcher does. But then suddenly, every animator was doing it. He had a nervous tick for the whole film.
But I think what you're getting at, it is true that stop motion has figured out a way to combine all the worst attributes of animated filmmaking and live action filmmaking with none of the benefits of either one, and mix them all together in a real crap cocktail. Because, we get into animation because we like to hide off in little dark places and hone our sequences and do iteration after iteration. And you're used to, you can see, they pose it out and then you break it down and you see it again and again. In stop motion, you go through all that process of story and recording voices and doing all that stuff, and then it comes down to launching an animator. And that animator has one rehearsal, which is done on 4s, where he basically figures out the holes he's going to drill in the floor for the pegs under the puppet, and then he does the final. So, and there's no going back.
It feels a lot more, I presume, a lot more like theater. It's kind of like you do everything in that conversation to cover every little stone and make sure everything is completely thought out, and then you push them out on stage.
And some of them don't speak English. They're from all over the world, and they were
Bulgarians.
I always say Hungarians. There was 3 Bulgarian animators who didn't speak English, and one of them, Dobrin, did the best Madame Frou-Frou stuff.
He was so good.
But you had no idea if he understood anything you said at the launch. And then he walked out, and I'd turn to his lighting cameraman, Mark, and I'd say, and he goes, he'd understand a word. He would just go.
Yeah, there was that thing though that Dobrin would do, because we would really act it out.
Desert skirt and all that stuff.
And then we would go crazy acting it out in the edit suite, and then at a certain point, Dobrin would just go. And you get up, walk out, animate it.
And well, you guys, you're used to, you visit animators at their desk, and we would visit them on the set, and we were allowed on every set a 10-frame cutback. We could make a 10-frame cutback. Now, if a character's moving enough, they can go backwards 10 frames and they can find that old position. If it's subtle, they'll never find that position, and there'll be a pop in the animation. So we were allowed a 10 frames cutback. So we'd be doing that in editorial, like we got to cut back here, and then you could see the producers. You could hear a little noise, and suddenly the door would open. And the producer would come in, because we were talking about a 20-frame cutback. We were only allowed 10-frame cutback. And then if we and the producers didn't agree, Travis would show up and stuff. And Travis is a great animator. So a lot of times you'd be complaining about this, and then Travis would go, that's fine. The problem's over here, earlier in the sequence.
That does bring up a question. So, Travis, he's not here tonight. You guys can talk freely and honestly about this. Travis
over,
is actually.
So you don't have to be nice.
He is actually. He's the CEO of Leica, correct? Right.
He's the boss. He's the one person you go to for approvals.
And he is an elite animator.
Yep.
So you are still approving his scenes.
I can't tell you how many times in the morning I'd be like, God damn it, Travis, if you're not going to do it right, just go home. And then that afternoon, I would show him the reels for the third act, and he would give me occasionally notes. No, I mean, Travis is a really good animator. Even if he was here, I would say that.
Yeah, he is. He's one of the...
Luckily, otherwise it would be impossible.
He's one of the leaders on the floor in terms of the footage and the quality of it. And I really feel for our animation department, because I think they're under more pressure than anybody else to sort of keep the bar high. I mean, because Travis does recognize when anybody's starting to slip a little in terms of the team. And those guys feel the pressure every day to try to equal him out there.
But it's good. I mean, a lot of times people are lucky enough in our industry to have a great producer and great people who really love animation. And in Travis, you have somebody who started, at the bottom and rose up to be the CEO. So in a way, it's like every animator in here knows they sit next to their pals and they storyboard, and every one of their pals is a genius about every movie that's come out and has an opinion. It's as if one of your pals who's really smart suddenly started running the company and loved animation as much as you did. It's really great to have that. And it's just us, a little independent studio. So we don't have anything above that. We don't have a bigger corporation. I don't, especially since you two sort of ruined the curve of what's expected out of animated
Chris
films.
did. I had nothing to do with it.
It's like working with some of the huge budgets and those huge expectations. What's it like?
You guys are harsh.
And what are you guys going to do next? How are you going to top it?
Now I know why there are only 26 of you guys. You're really brutal. But you talk about being a small group, and we obviously it is pretty common in animation to have two directors. And you guys share duties, and how do you divide it in your case?
Well, I mean, in the pre-production phase of it, well, part of the reason I ended up directing beside you is our sensibilities just really synced up early on. So, I mean, we're pretty much joined at the hip in those early days of just making sure that we're both completely in sync with what the story's going to be and the character designs and all the rest of it. Once that shooting schedule starts, just the way stop motion works, the production team is really glad to have two directors because
there's
they...
50 sets active at one time, 2 sets per each animator, so that they have a bounce set. As soon as they're finished on one set, you just march them through the curtain to their next set. But there's stop motion is finite resources is the issue.
Yeah.
You only have 8 eggs puppets. And that you can't download another eggs and get up ahead of the schedule. And they're constantly ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling going out and repairing the puppets. They have a little ambulance where they do puppet repair. And that was the most puppets we had for any particular character. And so there's a huge room where I think this was invented by Henry. We call it the big boards, where the whole room is covered, where every single day of the 18-month schedule is scheduled out, where the eggs puppet will be on this day, where the teddy bear, we only had 1 teddy bear, where you can't have the teddy bear in that shot. Why? Because he's got to be over on set 34, so that you can have a piece of felt that looks like a teddy bear from behind and stuff. And I was like, what? Because we used to download another boog, man, no problem. So it was like, what do you mean we don't? You can have the trout puppet, but it's the sitting trout puppet from the vehicle, so you can't show him walking because he can't walk. There's a lot of issues like that. It's like, we're making a big Hollywood movie here, man.
That's great. Tony and I worked at Sony together, so any of your emails leak out?
No. And I had some really mean ones, man. No, I was really jealous.
Anyway. That's it for these guys. Come back up at the stage at the end. Tony and Graham. Thank you, guys.
Ooh, I think now we get to move to a little. Is this on? I don't know.
You're on.
Am I on? A little bit of hand drawn.
Yes.
And painted, a little more traditional.
Yes.
With Song of the Sea. And we're very fortunate to have the director, Tomm Moore, here. He could join us.
There's Tomm.
Nice to meet you too. Hello.
Hello, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
So
I
yes,
just have to say, it is a beautiful film. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
Textures.
Hooray.
Hand drawn.
Well, and I read that a personal experience led to this. And can you talk about that? Something on the sea that happened on the sea itself, and how that inspired this?
Yeah, it was a long time ago now. It's amazing how long these films take. You know, my son is here tonight, and he's 19. He was 10 years old when I had the first idea for this. Based the main character on my son Ben, and we were sketching on the beach in the West Coast. We were on holidays before we'd even gotten into Secret of Kells production. Was just kind of ramping up, and we spotted these seals that had been killed. And it was quite disturbing. The seals had been killed, and we asked the lady we were renting the cottage from what was going on, why were there dead seals on the beach, and she said the fishermen had started to blame the seals for the falling fish stock, and they were taking out the frustration on the seals. So we were quite disturbed by that, and we were talking to her about it, and she was saying it wouldn't have happened years ago, that there used to be a belief in Celtic, or that the seals could contain the souls of the people lost at sea. And it started me thinking about the fact that when we lose the folklore and we lose the stories, we lose a certain connection to the environment and to the places and the culture itself. So I thought it was important to try and modernise those old fairy tales and try and bring them back into the consciousness, you know. So.
Oh, that's great. So the idea you had was 10 years ago? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's a long time ago now.
How long did this movie take to actually make?
I didn't really get going. Like, that sort of stirred around. I started reading the old stories and thinking about it. And at first I thought there might be a place for some of them in Secret of Kells, but it was such a different story. And then I started thinking of this story. And maybe about 7 years ago, I kind of had a bare outline, and I started to design the characters and worked with Adrian Merijo, who was one of the background artists on Secret of Kells. We started to do concept art. And then we got in touch with the Irish Film Board, who put us in touch in turn with Will Collins, and we started to work on draft after draft of script and story reel while we tried to raise the finance for about 4 years. And then we finally got into production, and we made the whole film in about 24 months.
Wow. Can you talk a bit about working with Adrian Merijo in terms of, so not just the look of the film, but the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, Adrian ended up being a very close collaborator. He's an amazing director in and of himself. He made a short film with us called Old Fangs between Secret of Kells and before we got started on Song of the Sea. And he's actually a French guy, and he lived and worked in Ireland for maybe 12 years. And so he was kind of really part of the team, but he did bring a different perspective where we kind of tried to mash our styles together, where I would be bringing a certain knowledge and maybe even geeky knowledge of old ancient Irish history, and he was bringing another take on things. And I loved his natural way of painting. He had a watercolor style, or water-based inks he uses, and I was trying to get better at watercolors. I was asking for tips, and I never figured out how we could capture light like that. He's really amazing, light and atmospheric perspective, aerial perspective, when the kind of water particles are in the air between objects, and it creates that sort of misty thing. So he just did a fantastic job of bringing that dampness and atmosphere. But the one thing I found really interesting was I'd show him these old pictograms or old Celtic markings on the stones, old Pictish carvings on stones, and he would see like modern art, like he'd look, it reminds me of Klee or Kandinsky, stuff that I would never think of, you know. So we brought a whole other visual language to the movie that was really important.
Yeah, because the style itself is somewhat flat and very stylized, the characters, but then the backgrounds you have, there's so much beautiful texture in those, and I don't know.
We tried to play with two styles as well. We kind of have stories that are half remembered and they're really washy. That was the first style we thought about for the whole movie, a really washy style. And we worked with a team in Belgium, Digital Graphics, who'd worked with us on Secret of Kells, and they developed a lovely way of applying the texture from the backgrounds to the characters for Ernest and Celestine, which was the last film they'd worked on after Secret of Kells. So we were able to use that for some of the scenes, which are like you can see sometimes we even left the tape on screen. You can see that they're just like sketchbook, you know, feeling, and those are for the memories or for the stories. And then the rest of the movie was supposed to be much more immersive and much more lush and fill in the whole screen.
Did the success of Kells obviously help you get this?
Yeah, I mean, it helped us get it made, and we were able to get the whole team together. Like, a lot of the people who worked on Kells came back and worked with us again, so that was fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, you talk. I mean, to move over to music for a bit, which is really important in this film. That you worked with French composer Bruno Coulet again, and he had worked on The Secret of the Kells. How did you work with him? Talk about that collaboration.
Well, Bruno and the band Keela, their traditional Irish band Keela, they'd worked together on Secret of Kells, but it was sort of a situation where Bruno had done some demo stuff early on, and then we didn't really see him. We worked with Temp Music, and then he did the whole shooting match in like a very short period of time at the end of the production. Whereas for Song of the Sea, we knew that it needed to be much more organic. So we were already working with the musicians right from the start. Even before the script was finished, we were showing them storyboard sequences that I already had on reels, and trying to figure out what the main theme would be. So Bruno came over to Ireland and worked very often with the guys from Keela, and there was a very kind of organic session that would happen regularly while we were developing the story, so that the music and the story kind of developed together.
How about when you're recording the actors? Do you try to bring them together? I know you had several.
Yeah, we actually have David Rawle here tonight with the voice of Ben. And Nora Toomey, who amongst other many duties on the film was a voice director and worked very closely with the actors as well. She's here tonight too.
Great.
And so. It was one of the nicest things was the voice. Like all of my short list of like the people I wanted to work with all said yes. That was maybe thanks to the success of Kells. So it was fantastic to get people I was a fan of, and people like Brendan Gleeson and Fionnuala Flanagan and all came on. And yeah, we managed to have an awful lot of this stuff where they were able to act opposite each other and get that energy and get that dynamic going. And we had very, very few pickups, maybe for the song because something got recorded a little bit wrong. But generally, we managed to get it in the 2-week recording session, the voices we needed, yeah, so it was fantastic.
Well, again, but then like, what's the actor's name?
David.
David?
David, yeah.
So David, how old is David now?
He's like 15 now, David? 14.
14, and
we
when
celebrated
you started,
your birthday,
how old were you when you started?
What age were you, Dave? It was 11.
So
we had a birthday party for
voice changing. Was it a bit of a?
We never had to. Actually, we were lucky enough. We didn't have to go back and pick up anything. So it was something we worried about near the end. But we were lucky to get David. He's a big star in Ireland. He's on the TV series Moonboy, and we'd been auditioning different kids. But when we talked to David, we could tell he was the most professional and experienced young actor in the country at the time. So we knew we had to wait for him. So we had to delay recording David a little. We'd delayed the voice record till the end of the shooting of the season of Moonboy. But then when we got him in, everything went very nicely.
And we tend to work a lot with script and story artists. That story artists will work with the script and change it a bit, and then we get in with the actors and we improv a bit.
Oh, yeah.
How was your process?
There was a certain amount of that, but we did a lot of that in the scratch recording. Like we did a lot of scratch recordings. It was a very limited budget. Like we made the whole film for €5.5 million, so we knew we had to know what we. The actors are expensive. I remember calculating how much Brendan Gleeson costs per word. It's like that kind of thing. So he brought a lot. I mean, he walked in on the day totally prepared, and he had ideas that he wanted to bring, and we changed stuff. He wouldn't have Connor be drinking. He thought that was very cliche, that he was like an alcoholic, so he kind of had it that he pushed the pint away, and he had ideas that we did bring, but generally we had it all, myself and Will and Nora had it all fairly figured out during the animatic process,
And how old was the little girl? Is Nora? Is that her?
Oh no, Nora's not the little girl. Well, she's the little girl.
No.
I don't know what age Nora is. But the little girl played Saoirse, Lucy. Yeah. Oh, she's only 5. Yeah, so when she sang the song, so
5 years
she was amazing and a pure star. Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah, and she's so funny. I remember something went wrong during the recording with Bruno, and Bruno said, "Sorry, we have to do it again." And he says, "Oh, don't be sorry. It's not your fault, Bruno." She's really cute. Yeah. And we were it was so funny at the premiere in London. She was there and she had a little white fluffy coat on. She just looks like Saoirse as well. She's so adorable. And she had a little white fluffy coat on, and she walked along the line signing autographs. Then she went to the end and said, "Do you want another one?" She didn't want to stop. She was just enjoying it. So she's great. And also my little nephew Kevin did the voice of Little Ben. So it was. I always say you have to sort of pack these things full of people and things that you love, because you have to live with them for so long. So it's a real fantastic experience to have that,
Yeah. I was reading something about the actual, not the style of animation, but how you did it. Something TV paint.
Oh yeah.
Now, is that
was
like
a big
Flash animation or no?
Oh no, I mean Flash would be, I suppose in some way. I mean, Ernest and Celestine was amazingly animated in Flash, but no, TV paint for me was something. There was a certain reluctance at the start. We'd done all the Secret of Kells on paper, and there was a certain feeling that it wasn't the same to animate directly on screen. But some of the younger animators were doing stuff that I literally couldn't tell the difference on, and they were using TV paint. So I remember one of the animators joking, "Oh, we can't do that. It's like Dylan going electric. It's totally, it's wrong." But in the end, I was a total convert in the end. I spent a long time, even did boards on paper and gave them to someone to scan and put together in TV paint. I was used to brush pens and pencils and stuff for boards. But when I finally moved over, I was a total convert because we had to do it. Obviously it's still 12 drawings per character per second, and it's still frame by frame animation. The only difference is we don't scan the paper anymore, and the backgrounds are still painted by hand on paper and stuff. So we kept that organic feeling. But we had 5 co-production partners, and the animation was done in 3 studios. So the difference between shipping, paper around the world like we did on Secret of Kells, and sometimes I'd do a draw over in Secret of Kells in Flash, and the animator would print it out and try and do it. So there was an efficiency with TV Paint that we could share files. I could do a draw over, and that same file could go over to the animator in Denmark or Luxembourg, and there wasn't that disconnect. So it was really useful for that anyway.
How much for you? I mean, you're the sole director, which again, animation's like, what?
This is the loneliest I felt in the whole production, honestly. I really didn't feel like I had so many helpers. I mean, Nora, who'd co-directed Secret of Kells, was head of story as well and was there every day. I was always bugging her. She was trying to work on her own project, and I'd come in every day into her office with a problem. And Paul and Will, the writer, and I just had a brilliant assistant director. So I had a lot of people around me that I could bounce off. So I never felt like a sole director. I felt just very lucky to be the apex of an amazing team,
And you did some of the work on it. So you did some of the painting and some of the drawing.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of painting, I did a lot of the early concept paintings and stuff. But I wouldn't hire myself to paint the final backgrounds. But I did some animation, and I did plenty of storyboards and designed the characters and stuff like that. So that's the luxury of a small studio. You get to touch a little bit of everything and really be involved that way.
Well, you did a beautiful job, Tomm.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. What is next?
Yes. And now we're gonna move to Japan, and we get the tale of Princess Kaguya. Please enjoy.
し訳ありません。申し訳ありません。どうかお許しを。行くよ。
ちょうど満開でございますね。
本当に見事な桜ね。帰りましょう。
え？
So we have filmmakers Yoshiaki Nishimura.
And the director Isao Takahata.
Jen, where are my cards? Where are they? Thank you. Thank you.
And we also have a lovely translator, Beth Carey. Hi, Beth. Sorry.
You're in my chair.
I'm in your chair?
Yeah.
We can move down one. Sorry, Chris.
It's okay, I could do this.
Don't take it personally.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Not today.
It's such an honor to have you. Thank you. This is such a beautiful film.
So your film was inspired by it's the folktale, the tale of the bamboo cutter, and so it's pretty well known in Japan. So how faithful did you feel that you had to stick to the original story?
日本では滝と物語がよく知られているので、それに忠実、ストーリーに忠実でないといけないっていうふうに思われてましたか？
そうですね。基本的にはストーリーには忠実なんだけれど、しかし日本のみんなが知っているものとはまるで違う感じを与える映画を作ろうとしました。
I knew I had to be basically true to the story, but I wanted to make a completely different version, interpretation of the story.
In what ways? What were the biggest changes?
何が一番大きな違いでしたか？
ですね、かぐや姫という女の子が読んでもわからないんですね。でそれがだから、どうして、男たちを拒否するのかとか、それからどうして突然泣き始めて結局月に帰ってしまうのか、そういうことが全然わからないんですけれど、そういうことを主人公のかぐや姫に即して感じられるようなことを考えたんですね。
Well, when one reads the story, you can't really understand the feelings of the Princess Kaguya, why she rejects all the suitors, why she starts crying and looking at the moon, and why she has to go back to the moon. So I put in some elements that gave the reasons why she would be feeling this way.
Well, can you talk about? Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I was just the thing about where we do a lot of script work here in the States and a lot of board work, and it's an entire team of story artists who are usually working on this. Can you talk about your process?
アメリカでは一つのチームを組んで絵コンテとかいろいろそういうことをやります。そちらの方ではどういうふうになさいますか？
日本ではほとんどですね、やはり先ほどじゃないの彼じゃないけど一人でやるんです。一人がディレクターをやってそれの統一のもとに作る集団的にはあまり作らないんですね。しかし当然チームが必要だしその大きな才能が必要なんで、例えばここに今日2人来てるべきだと思うんですね、この絵を見たらね。それはキャラクターデザインとそれからアニメーションディレクターをやった田辺治という男、それからもう一人は、その美術をやった小川和夫っていうその2人がここにいなくちゃいけないと思いますね。しかし全体としては一人で考え一人で やるというのが日本のスタイルです。
As the previous film, also they said just had one director. In Japan too, basically we just work with one director. Of course, we do have a lot of staff, but it's not necessarily a group effort at the top level. Right here today, we have myself as the director and the producer, Mr. Nishimura here, but we should also have Osamu Tanabe and Kazuo Oga, who were the main talents that drew those wonderful paintings that we worked on. So we have lots of talented people working with us, but overall, one person in charge of the vision.
Can we talk a little bit about, as we're seeing a lot more in America, of CG animation, and how has that affected Japan in terms of animation?
アメリカでは CG アニメーションが主流になってきてますけれど、日本ではどういうふうに受け止められていますか。それを日本ではどういう影響。
そうですね。アメリカで出来上がった CG アニメーションをみんな楽しんでるんじゃないでしょうかね。で、それはそれで楽しいし、素晴らしい作品で、今回も本当に大変感心しましたし、もちろん素晴らしいんですけれど、しかしまたアニメーションには別の考えがあるだろうということで、日本では伝統的にその線で描いたりするっていうことについてはずっと長い伝統があるんですね、歴史的にも。そういうことも含めてですけど、こう平面で描いていくっていうのはそう簡単には日本ではなくならないと思いますね。
In Japan, many people enjoy the CG animation that's made in the US, and they're very popular films. And tonight we saw lots of wonderful works of CG animation, so I was very impressed with them. But I think there's another way of thinking about animation. And Japan has a long history of line drawing and traditional painting in that style. And that is what I wanted to focus on, and also use the very flat plane effect of hand-drawn paintings. Okay.
それでですね、その CG でやったその立体的に奥行きのあるちゃんとした空間を作り、立体的なものを動かすっていうのはそこにものがあるっていう、その画面にあるものを信じなさいって言ってると思うんですね。でところがそうじゃなくて画面にあるものは仮の姿で、その裏にあるものを想像してくださいっていうのは線で描いた絵だと、単純化しますけど言えると思うんですね。そうするとやっぱりそういうファンタジーの場合には本当にないものがありありと見せなくちゃいけないから、その 3DCG になったり要するに立体的になることに非常に価値があると思うんですけど、しかし我々の知ってるその世界であるいは人間を扱うんだったらやっぱりそれをそのまま生身で描くのもいいですけれど、それだけじゃなくて絵に描いてその背後にある本物を想像するというね、その力を観客の力を引き出すと、そういうことを狙いとしてやっているつもりです。
So with CG animation, we get a depth and dimensionality, and something that is definitely there in front of us. And when drawing a fantasy world, you have to make the audience believe what is there. So I think that's a very good way of showing it. But I also think that when we're depicting reality, a historical reality type of setting, then what we want to show is what's behind the actual reality, and have the audience use their imagination to fill in the story. So that's why I chose to do the painting style, so that the audience could imagine what was the reality, the real truth behind the paintings. And that's the strength of paintings, I think.
Mm-hmm. there's something I noticed too, and it was in the clip here. You had the animation was beautiful, especially the little baby, and it was so charming. And then earlier in the movie too, there's the baby and the research or of studying the infant and being able to capture that in the animation was just incredible. And I think what also, the line, like you say, the simplicity of your line work too, really added to the charm. Do your animators do a lot of research when it comes to studying humans and animals?
こんにちは。こんにちは。今回のさっき高畑さんが言ってた田辺治というアニメーターは赤ん坊の動きを捉えることに関してはですね、もう右に出る者いません。でその彼の子供がですね、当時2歳だったかな、その子供をちゃんと観察していたし、その赤ん坊のところを描いたアニメーターもですね別にいるんですけれど、彼にも子供ができてました。これはその彼らの子供とその天才アニメーターたちのですねコラボレーションによってできた奇跡的なシーンだと思いますね。はい。
Osamu Tanabe, who was the main animator, was really one of the best in drawing infant movements. And he had a 2-year-old child at the time. So he had observed carefully his own infant child and was able to get the movements wonderfully exactly. But also he had another animator working with him that also had a small child. So it was a collaboration between the animator's talents and their own children and their observation of their children.
That's great.
そういうことができるっていうしかしなんていうかな確信とそれからそれを本当にやってみたいという気持ちがないとああいうストーリーを前進させるわけではなくてその描写だけをやってることで映画を作るっていうのは僕にとってはその冒険でもあるしやりがいのある冒険だったんです。
So I think we have to have a belief that we're convinced that we can actually do it, and then have the actual means to be able to do it. And that's what the adventure of making an animation film is for me.
It's an adventure.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a beautiful film. And if you'll scoot to the side with us, please stay with us. We're going to bring everyone up, do a little musical chairs and therapy and stuff. So please stick around, enjoy.
First off, for anybody, what drew you to animation? What drew you to animation? Drew.
No pun.
See what he did there, everybody? See what he did?
That's Chris.
You got it.
Okay, for me it was Bambi. It was the movie Bambi. It was my first childhood memory that I can place, and I remember very vividly the experience of watching it, where I was, what it looked like, projected on the wall, and it was obviously an incredibly powerful film, beautiful and sweet and everything, but it was the movie that told me that my parents were going to die, and I know, and it's sort of funny but sort of horrifying as a child to be told this, and it impacted me in a profound way. It made me, I think, want to draw and write and create stories, and I think it led me on a path, compelled me down a path that led me to this place, so for me that was it.
Who else?
I wanted to be a comic book artist growing up, and I'd learned to draw from comic books, and when it came time, like once I'd graduated high school and I looked around, I couldn't connect where I was in my little town in Quebec to Marvel or DC in Manhattan. It just seemed an unattainable goal, but when I started looking around, a guidance counselor helped me find Sheridan College, which taught an animation program. And very quickly I realized everything I loved about comic books, designing characters, telling stories, creating worlds, laying it out the way that you see, was translated directly into animation, but it had movement and it traveled the world. And so I had an immediate sort of love and affinity for it.
I have to chip in on the I'm sure we've got comic books in common. Everybody's my comic book story is I remember seeing The Secret in Nim when I was a bit too old for it and just loving it so much. And then all my friends laughing at me because I was sitting with the little kids at a birthday party watching it. And then realising that Don Bluth had a studio in Dublin and thinking, oh wow, he could actually be an animator in Ireland, you know. And I remember going to visit it with Ross Stewart, who was the art director on Secret of Kells. We were childhood friends. We went to visit the Don Bluth studio. We were about 14. And we came out and said, that looks way too hard. Let's do comics instead.
Well, when I graduated high school, I didn't want to go to college. And my parents said, you're going to college? So I said, okay, I'm going to art school in Southern California. I saw, early on, I saw an animation celebration in Boston at the Orson Welles Theater, and it showed animated films from all over the world. And I'd always loved animation, I loved to draw, and then when I saw that collection of films, stuff like Yuri Norstein and to all types of animation, you know, I'd always loved the Disney films. That's when it was for me. I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, I similar story. I love comic books and animation. I told my mom and dad when I was like 5, I think, that I was going to work at Disney. Which is a very cheeky thing for a little 5-year-old to say, growing up in Iowa and having never even been to Disneyland. But yeah, I evidently uttered that, and so then they held me to it. So
that's great. Let's just keep going. Oh, Sharon.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be the special one talking about comics as my way into animation, but apparently
I love
not.
your comics, man.
And I think when I think back, Charles Schultz. I mean, Peanuts. It was that world and that comic strip that really got me into drawing and got me into the whole idea. And when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I loved film and I loved comics, and I thought, well, the two of those together must equal animation. I had no idea the process at all when I showed up at Sheridan, but learned very quickly that it was a very painful process, but I stuck with it.
Down here, do we?
ですね、日本でその漫画とかアニメとかっていうのが非常に盛んになり始めるのはですね、自分が大人になってからなんですね。子供の時には戦争中だったし、ほとんどアニメもそれから漫画もほとんど接してないんですよ。大人になってからで、大人っていうか、学生の時に一本ですね、フランスでできたアニメーション映画ですごいのに出会ったんですね。それで、こんなことがアニメーションでできるのか、それは社会とかそういうなんていうかな、心理描写もそうだし、一言で言うとすごく大人向きのアニメーションだったんですね。でディズニーはすごいなと思ってましたけど、もちろんピノキオなんか本当にすごいんですけど、でもびっくりしたんです、フランスのアニメーションで。聞いたところによるとアメリカじゃちゃんと吹きってないんで非常に残念なんですけど、その作品の、今変わった形が「王と鳥」という作品になってます。それはご存知かもしれませんけど、元なんです。その王と鳥じゃなくてね、その前に作ったやつだったんです。
So comic books, manga, and animation have become popular in Japan after I became an adult. My childhood was wartime in Japan, and there really wasn't that much animation or comic books during that time. When I was a student, I saw a French animation film that really surprised me and amazed me, and realized what can be done with animation films. It can talk about society, it can give psychological insight, and this film was basically aimed at adults, I think. Of course, I think Disney films for children are wonderful, like Pinocchio, but what made me think that animation was really worth pursuing was this French film. And unfortunately, it hasn't been widely released in the U.S. There's a later film called The King and the bird. But the one that I am referring to is the 1953, The Shepherdess and the Chimney Sweep.
Wow.
Well, the producers, we'd like to
Yeah,
hear
the
from
producers.
you.
Go ahead.
You first? Okay. 僕はですね、まあ見ていただくと分かるんですけど、高畑監督と僕は42歳違うんですね。42 years old 違うんだけど、僕は高畑さんが作った蛍の墓、そして宮崎さんが作った隣のトトロを100回以上見てます。でこの作品を見て、まあ感動して、そして大人になった時にそこに座っている鈴木さんっていうビッグプロデューサーに手紙を書いて入れてもらいました。で今日ここにいることはすごく光栄です。
So as you can see, there's quite an age difference between Mr. Takahata and myself. There are 42 years difference. I saw his The Grave of the Fireflies. And Hayao Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro. Must be over 100 times that I've seen those films. And they really made such an impression on me. I wanted to become active in animation films. So I wrote to Mr. Toshio Suzuki, who's the producer at Studio Ghibli, and was very fortunate to have been able to get a job at Studio Ghibli.
Nice. Okay.
Grave of the Fireflies is one of my favorite films. It's really stunning. Yeah, I always told stories as a kid, and I got into theater, and I produced a piece at the Getty Museum called The Wanderings of Odysseus, and a group of Disney executives saw me and said, would you be interested in animation? And I'd never thought about it, and I went and saw, at that time they were just releasing Aladdin, and my eyes were opened. I thought just what you could do in terms of telling stories, and that really started my apprenticeship. And then I would say it's come to fruition through films like Grave of the Fireflies and Totoro, and but then John Lasseter shows up, and he just took it to another level for me. So it's been a great 22-year career, actually.
Great. And Bonnie.
For me, it was movies. I love movies, and from the time I was a little kid, and I happened to meet a man named John Lasseter, and he told me about a movie that he wanted to make, and I helped him make Toy Story, and I was hooked.
Well, and then while we're talking uber global, the future of animation, what excites you guys? What also makes you nervous? What are you concerned about?
Yeah, it's interesting because every film that I've ever done, the technology changes. And the one key issue continues to be story. Just focus on story, and the technology will follow. It's just a great medium to tell stories.
I found myself amazed all over again tonight watching all of these clips. They're incredible, and there's such diversity. And so when I'm watching that stuff, I can't help but be really optimistic about where all this is going. I can't predict where we're going to be 5 years, 10 years from now, but I am wildly optimistic about this industry. Everywhere you look, studios and artists are setting a really high bar and telling their own stories that they're passionate about. But the level of quality is unbelievable, and I think we're seeing it here tonight.
I think it's a super exciting time. I think what's really amazing is that technology has allowed traditional animation, you see it in the stop motion and the hand-drawn animation, to be done by small teams. You know, passionate people are able to make a whole feature film. It would have taken, so many people and so many millions to do. Wouldn't be possible to take the risks we're able to take now. I think that's what's exciting. The technology is putting the tools in the hands of everybody and allowing people to explore even traditional techniques. So I think it's really exciting time.
I'd say I'm really excited that the negative stigma that animation is purely light entertainment for children is steadily being lifted, and we see that these. We just see these movies like time and again become worldwide blockbusters, and huge income for the studios. And it seems like the more chances we take, and the more we speak to the adult audience as much as we do to the young audience, the more they're embraced. And so that's really encouraging to me.
Yeah, you talked earlier about it being big in the marketplace, but when you look at How to Train Your Dragon 2, and there's none of the nominees in the special effects category have anything that isn't in your film. Deborah Cook designed our costumes for our puppets. She does everything every costume designer does in Hollywood, but at 1/5 the scale, with a metal armature inside of it that has to be animatable and stuff. So I think nights like this are great, and the people who represent us in this, this wing of the Academy have been great. But keep pushing it a little bit and get the films nominated in some of those other areas, not just for the best film, but also in costume and special effects.
Do you guys feel any pressure, because I think audience today are more sophisticated? Do you feel the pressure of that kind of storytelling, or?
I don't know if I feel pressure. I actually think that's cool. You know what I mean? It gives us more opportunities to push things, like everybody's saying, and to keep making sophisticated stories. I think that's actually really cool. And like Roy alluded to earlier, when we were a little afraid that we were going to, horrify and terrify kids with certain aspects of our film, and they actually were laughing at some of it, and what it taught me is that kids are a lot more resilient than we think, and they can handle stories of all kinds. Look at the Grimm stories from the past. I mean, they had some darker elements to them. So, I think that's great, actually, that the audience is so sophisticated, because it just means we can keep telling more sophisticated stories.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
What's next?
We have a few more.
You bring up children, and I think we all know that animators hate children, right? Yeah, right. So it must feel good that we don't have to worry about them anymore. Right?
But I do think I have to say that I think the most gratifying thing about making the films is really the reaction of kids and the audiences, and that just gives me such pleasure. And we get so much reach out to letters and cards and people that have ideas for the next movie, and from little kids that just, can't barely spell their own name, and they want to, trying to tell Dean what to do with Astrid and Hiccup and Toothless, but that's so special, and they just so invested in it, that we all have movies that we remember from when we were kids, and to think that these films affect them, and this is maybe the first movie that they see in a movie theater, or I know they see them in other ways now, not on their phone, I hope, but that I think that is special. So I think the community, of seeing, the experience of seeing it in a community with your family and the effect that it has on you. I think, to be honest, I think that's why we do them, actually, because it just, it not only means stuff for, my kid who was born while I was doing Toy Story, but now I see, other generations of kids enjoying them over and over again. And when they hold up like these movies do, we're really lucky that that's the legacy of these films.
Mm-hmm. And on an actual, for real note, and not kidding, how important is to you understanding that children do embrace these films when you're building these characters, thinking about the role models they might become, or the message that's going to send to the children? How big of an impact does that have as you shape the story?
I think it's a huge responsibility. I mean, I always think it's ironic when people say, "Oh, would you like to move up to making a real film, for adults in live action?" And you're like, this is the most responsibility anybody can have as a filmmaker. As Bonnie said, it might be the first movie a kid. I know the movies I saw as a kid. I remember the characters. I watched them over and over again. They had a big impact on me. And so when you're speaking to children, you have a bigger responsibility. And now it's awesome because we don't just speak to kids. It's not like babysitting kids. It's like a movie that can be appreciated by a whole family. It's much more difficult to challenge, I think, than making like a gritty little, low budget horror in the bay. You know what I mean? I think you have to think about your audience, You can't just like get off on it. You know?
Yeah, and I think most of the films, when you ask people films that they remember Bambi, and they remember Pinocchio, and they remember King Kong, and they remember films that they were slightly frightening, and then were that feeling that you were getting a window onto a part of a reality, part of life, as a child that you could see. So I think you do a disservice to kids and to audiences in general if you hide that stuff away. Like the Grimm's fairy tale or Roald Dahl, or those things that we all loved as kids. It's funny that, like, well, it was okay for me, but I don't think my kid should read that stuff. Yeah. But in finding that place in the film, seeing, keeping it in the film and having that full range of emotions, if possible, and seeing their faces when they're watching it in the movie theater, that they are getting a window into. This is the things that motivate the world. I don't understand why Snatcher's doing that exactly, but I understand that that's how the world works and stuff. And I think that's a good thing to do. And I don't think they'll necessarily take things from the films, that'll harm them.
It's interesting how many of the movies that we're looking at tonight feature loss, young characters who've lost somebody. And that it seems to be something that kids are not afraid to take on and think about. And I think that sometimes these films can be a vehicle for kids who are dealing directly with loss or are curious about death. I know that Big Hero 6 and some of these other movies have sparked questions that my 7-year-old daughter, and it started a conversation, and I think a really healthy conversation. And obviously animation has a history of dealing with that subject, and it's certainly not something that kids, that's too much for kids. I think that's something that they're curious about.
That's a great one. What about the global market today? Do you guys think about that when you're making your movies? Because it is so huge right now.
It's funny, this whole topic of responsibility and, is it right for kids or is it touching a global market? To me, it kind of goes over my head a little bit, because I'm only ever trying to make the movie I want to see. And collectively, like our team of artists, we get excited about certain visuals. Oh, that'd be so great on screen. But we're actually it whets our own appetite. And I guess it helps that we're all just a bunch of overgrown kids. But I find the idea of second guessing, well, what will the mothers think, or what will the kids below 7 think, and are we touching, is this Europe friendly enough? Like that kind of discussion, it just puts you in a world of just sort of shaky assumptions and I to me anyway, it seems like wasted effort. Make the movie that moves you, that makes you laugh, that makes you cry.
There's nothing.
And hope that it has the same resonance for others.
Yeah. There's nothing better than when you're sitting on the end of the aisle and looking down the aisle, and you're seeing the audience go on a ride that you have helped craft. I mean, it's just the greatest feeling in the world.
I mean, there has been obviously greater awareness of the international market for these films, and that's great. We make our movies to reach a big audience. So anyone around the world who comes to see one of our films, that's fantastic. And I started 20 years ago, and I met Dean working on Mulan, a movie set in China, and at that time we didn't honestly think very much about how it would be received there, because all anyone thought about was the North American box office. And of course now it's changed so dramatically, and we are curious about how things will translate. It should not affect the storytelling. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. You have to tell a story that moves you, but I think it's just interesting to see how it plays in other countries.
I know Tony and I had a certain concern, preoccupation with the United Kingdom on this one, but
we were afraid they were going to string us up for what we did to the culture. We were really worried about the teeth. But we had to keep it realistic.
Yeah. Stay true.
I think the other thing too about the global thing too is it's a slippery slope, because we don't culturally, there's so many things that are specific to cultures that we're just not aware of. So I think that's even more reason to tell the story that you want to tell, and hope that the thematic ideas that you're interested in, that your film is about, is a universal theme, that it goes across cultures, across borders, and that the entertainment too, is such that it plays to everybody. And so, because it's a real slippery slope if you really start to think about, specifically how to tailor your things to different countries, because we are just not, of that culture. So.
I think Studio Ghibli is really a great example of a studio that keeps making movies from a specific culture that play in a universal way, and they don't seem to try and water it down so that everyone else can, understand it, or they seem to be really true to their culture. And I'm just so inspired by that, because the movies travel all over the world and they're loved everywhere.
Wow. Would you like, we have final words? Mr. Takahaki-san.
ですね、さっき蛍の墓のことを言ってくださったんですけど、諸外国では幸運にもですね、1本だけでご覧になったと思うんですね、皆さんが。でところが日本で吹きた時にはですね、隣のトトロと2本立てってご存知かな、とにかく2本続けてやるんですね。でしかもどっから入ってもいいんですよ、どっちから。だから非常に不幸な人をたくさん作り出してしまった犯罪的な映画だったんですよ。要するに、鳥のトトロという作品を見て非常に幸せな気持ちになった子供、特に子供なんか、その後で蛍の墓を見させられるんですね。ちょっと想像してもらいたいんですけど、そういうことが日本では起こってたんだけど、ただ私自身としてはだから蛍の墓という主人公が死んでしまう映画を子どもたちに見せるべきかどうかということは随分作りながら考えました。で結論としては見せて良いんだっていう、今その理由を喋ると長くなりますからやめますけど、見せて良いんだという結論のもとに作りました。
Well, thank you so much for saying such wonderful things about Studio Ghibli films. And I think it's fortunate that people get to see them one at a time abroad, whereas when we released My Neighbor Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies, they were released on the same date. So it was a released as a double feature. So I think we might have done a disservice because people watched Totoro and became very happy. And then they watched Grave of the Fireflies, my film, where the main characters die at the end. So while I was making the film, I really thought about whether it was all right for children to be able to watch something where the main child character dies at the end. But I can't go into all the details right now, but I came to the conclusion that that would be all right in this case of this story, and that it was a good story that needed to be told.
フューチャーオブアニメーションってことなんで、一つ言いたいのは、この高畑勲っていう監督はですね、若かりし頃に宮崎駿監督を見出して、スタジオジブリをですね、設立した人なんですね。日本のアニメーションの、大げさに言うと全てを作ってきた人なんです。でその方が今こうやってここに立っているってことと、実は今回ノミネートされた作品の多くを見るとですね、スタジオジブリの影響が見て取れる作品もあって、高橋さんとか宮崎さんとか日本でスタジオジブリで作品を作ってきた人たちの志を受け継いでいる人たちがこうやって集まっていることにすごく嬉しく思うし、これから、国は違いますけど一緒にいい作品を作っていけたらなと思っています。
You asked about the future of animation, Isao Takahata here and Hayao Miyazaki were the ones who founded Studio Ghibli, but it was actually Mr. Takahata who picked Mr. Miyazaki up and encouraged him and developed his talent as well. And it might be a bit of an overstatement to say that the two of them and Studio Ghibli have been the history of Japanese animation in the last few decades. When I look at the other nominated films, I see a lot of influence of Studio Ghibli films, and I think the future of animation is very strong when I see that the kind of intentions and ambitions and aspirations that Mr. Miyazaki and Mr. Takahata have been handed down to the new crop of animator and animator film directors. So even though we are working in different countries and in different cultures, I'm really looking forward to the future of animation and perhaps working with some of you in the future.
Okay.
I think that beautifully sums up our evening of hearing all the wonderful things that inspired you, the past, and as you give these beautiful films to the future animators out there and storytellers and children who are dreamers. And we are so honored to have you all here, and thank you so much for your beautiful films.